been a staple of British film and television for more than 20 years, winning audiences with diverse roles that showcase his natural charm and quiet confidence. It was the 1995 BBC television adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice that made Colin Firth a household name. His performance as the aloof Mr Darcy earned him a BAFTA nomination and heartthrob status. This performance also made him the object of affection for fictional journalist Bridget Jones, created by Helen Fielding.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I really am sorry.
This film also gave Firth his first BAFTA Film Award nomination for Best Actor. In 2008, Firth embraced his role as one of the 3 prospective fathers in blockbusting musical Mamma Mia, singing and dancing his way around a sun-kissed Greek island. Last year, Firth enjoyed glowing reviews for his performance as a college professor grieving the sudden death of his partner in Tom Ford's A Single Man. A performance of great restraint and subtlety, it earned Firth his first BAFTA win. His current film recounts the unlikely friendship between the stammer-afflicted King George VI and his speech therapist. It clearly cements Colin Firth's status as a leading man. Well, let's go to something which I think people tend to assume about you and see whether we can kind of nail that early on. Are you a posh public school boy?
No.
So?
No, I failed my 11 plus. I didn't make it to grammar school, and I went to a secondary mod. And so that's my background. I've been accused of lying when I've told that story in interviews. I've actually had one very well-known journalist who, it almost killed the interview, actually, because he just said, well, we can't go any further if you're just going to be that dishonest, because you clearly are a public school boy.
Because you'd lived in America briefly, I think.
It was not just America, it was sort of West Country thing as well. I would not have survived intact had I spoke like this at school. Either in America or in Hampshire, because Hampshire, the school I went to, they all spoke like that, and I spoke like that, from the age of about 7 to the age of about 16. And I sort of scraped through my O-levels and ended up with people who were well-spoken and also considered quite cool, so I was able to kind of bring the 2 things together.
I mean, it obviously was clear to you then, before the stage where you started to change your accent, that you wanted to be an actor.
From the age of about 5, I got lots of attention for doing idiotic pantomimes and any chance to put on a frock and get in the middle of the class. And, always, you know, I was always first in line for that stuff. And because it was one of the few things as a schoolboy that I got approval for, I became a kind of addiction, really. That and a fascination of storytelling. With storytelling, I fell in love with stories and read as soon as I could, quite avidly. And at the same time, I had all the grown-ups telling me, you'll have to find a profession, you'll have to be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor, or what my family tended to produce, which were teachers, clergymen, clergywomen, missionaries, and doctors. At the age of around 14, I had a drama teacher, an extracurricular drama teacher. I used to do drama workshops on a Saturday. And because I fancied her, I tended to listen to her advice more than that of my parents or any of my careers advisors. And she said, you could pursue that, you know. And it seems an incredibly simple thing, but I don't think I've ever felt so liberated in my life. I mean, I just went back to my maths class the next day thinking, I don't need you. You know?
So after London Drama Centres, you got the role in another country, on stage, first of all, which is obviously public schoolboy into espionage, kind of, and then film thereafter. Did you feel at that time that you wanted to be a film actor rather than a stage actor, or did it matter?
No, I didn't think I'd ever get a film role. No, I was an extraordinarily pretentious student, and I had the ideas that I wouldn't settle for anything less than cutting-edge experimental theatre. And I thought that I had nothing to do with the middle classes. But I realized everyone at drama school saw me as Lord Brideshead.
But you also had Tumbledown, which came thereafter on television, and then you went to Hollywood. You made Valmont with Milos Forman. I mean, that must have seemed at that stage that all your dreams had come true.
Yes, I mean, short-lived as it was. Forman had come to town, and the whole of the English film industry was abuzz with this. He was casting, and everybody was showing up to read for him, and everyone had to read for him, and it didn't matter what your status was in the film industry. You went and you auditioned. And Milos is an extraordinarily charming man, but he's also extremely rude. And he doesn't have a mendacious bone in his body. If he thinks you're rubbish, he'll say, "Why are you rubbish? Why do exactly what you just did is great. I love everything fine, exactly like this, but do it one more time, but this time convincing."
But what you should say, I think, about Valmont is that actually Valmont is really good.
Oh, yeah.
And the tragedy of Valmont was that Dangerous Liaisons came right up against it. And essentially it's the same plot.
Timing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting how people seeing that film 10 years afterwards have appreciated it much more. A friend of mine, I remember, wrote to me and said, it's like a wine, it's better after 10 years. The film actually isn't better, it's just you've managed to distance yourself from that moment.
But I suppose that the other side of that, the contrast in a sense, is that you did not have great expectations of the television adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, because you actually turned it down to start with?
Oh, I strenuously. I was bombarded with pleas from everybody I knew not to do it because I was so wrong for it. I had people saying, please don't do it because I've always been in love with this character, and if you do it, it'll change all that. I had people saying, no, you can't, Colin, he's supposed to be sexy, it's just not going to work.
So what swung it then?
It's very odd. If you battle over something long enough, you get involved without realizing. I still didn't see anything to play because the guy doesn't speak most of the time. And that's one of the biggest stretches because anyone who knows me, and you're beginning to gather now, it's very difficult to shut me up. And part of the biggest stretch was, how do you shut me up enough for 6 hours to play this guy? And she does not write men from the inside, Jane Austen. She doesn't dare. There isn't a single dialogue in the whole of her canon which depicts a conversation between two men alone, because she didn't presume to know what two men would talk about when there's not a woman present. And so I just thought, this is a guy who stands and smoulders for 6 hours, and it'll drive people, to despair. And then I was about to say no, when I realized that saying no meant someone else would get to do it. And then I felt rather territorial about it. And I thought, I don't think I could bear that now. I've been tussling with this for whatever it was, 2 months. And the idea of somebody else taking it on just made me, I got a bout of jealousy about it.
Well, we're so glad that you did, because we're now going to see from 1995 a moment when television audiences across, the nation was gripped at this stage, and this is the point where Mr Darcy is about to make a declaration to Elizabeth Bennet.
Almost from the earliest moments of our acquaintance, I have come to feel for you a passionate admiration and regard, which, despite all my struggles, has overcome every rational objection, and I beg you most fervently to relieve my suffering and consent to be my wife.
In such cases as these, I believe the established mode is to express a sense of obligation. But I cannot. I have never desired your good opinion, and you have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly. I'm sorry to cause pain to anyone, but it was most unconsciously done, and I hope will be of short duration.
Did you ever guess that Mr Darcy was going to kind of grow and become this monster, in a sense, over your career?
I'm astonished at his longevity. So no, you can't possibly predict it. And I'd just met Livia, my wife at the time. We were in South America, which really is a parallel universe. And I just came back to Italy, and I wasn't in England when all this was happening. So I only had my mum's word for it. And you know, bless her, she's always been very supportive and telling me that everything's going very well. So when she said that the role you've just played has become a national phenomenon, I said, well, bless you, Mum, thank you.
She was right. You should always listen to your mum. But Bridget Jones 1 and 2, of course, is Mr Darcy again, isn't it? But just...
Oh, of course. What happened with the Bridget things is that because I was carrying this thing, which I've been hugely misrepresented as being resentful about, and I'm not remotely. I actually love the fact that people engaged so much with something I did that it lasts 15 years later. I mean, I should be so lucky, really. And I relish it, really. But I think you have to know what to do with that and recognize that the baggage will be there, and that rather than wishing it away, that you can make use of it in certain ways. And I think that humour is the best way to do that, and that's what the Bridget thing was about.
Well, we're going to talk about Blake Morrison's memoir, And When Did You Last See Your Father, in which you play Blake. So did you meet him before you played him?
No, I met him during it. And it's always rather terrifying, because it's, as we actors see the writers like God, because your creator just walks in. I mean, you enter this strange, devised universe in which you completely submit yourself to this idea that this conceit that you're this other person. And in the midst of that, on comes your maker. And I think as actors on the whole, we're terribly in awe of our writers. But one of the things that makes the book a bit of a masterpiece, and I think it really is, and I think the film does justice to it, is that it acknowledges all the pain, the negative pain of grieving over somebody. I think the books that come out and try to sugar it and espouse some sort of bogus resolution don't really help people in the end.
Well, the scene we're going to see is actually from the funeral, where Blake challenges his auntie, Beattie, whom he has seen with his father over the years.
The thing is, I do know something went on, Beattie, between you and Dad.
I see.
And I know it was a long time ago, and I'm not angry. I mean, I was angry for years, furious with him mainly, but I'm not anymore. At least I don't think so. But I would like to know the truth. I mean, I need to know the truth. I think I'll go mad otherwise. I mean, you can understand that, can't you?
Oh, yes. Yes, I suppose so. Well, mine was never a very happy marriage, Blake, and Arthur, patron saint of lost causes, he saw that and he consoled me, I suppose. I was lonely and he made me laugh. I wouldn't have got through the days without him. It was consolation, Blake.
But was it physical?
Is that important?
Yes, I think it is.
Leave me something of him, please, Blake. It is mine.
Now, somewhere in between all this comes along the $600 million earning Mamma Mia.
Yeah, I didn't earn the 600 million.
But it has touched something as a film.
Oh, yeah. I've very rarely done anything in which I feel such a completely uncomplicated sense of satisfaction in the response that it's got. I don't enjoy watching the films I'm in very much. It's a grisly experience. Most actors will say the same thing. But to sit and watch this group of skeptics, which is what it usually was, sit in a room, and there will be some curmudgeons out there who will have come out skeptical, but I think that they probably should go and sort themselves out. you sit there and the film begins and you see that sitting like this. This is the body language in the first 5 or 10 minutes. And then you see them begin to loosen up. And then you see one shoulder sort of go. And and by Act 2, they're, you know, the whole thing is a sea of kind of bizarre mobility. And then everyone's on their feet. You know, normally we see the film once, see it twice, and then, you know, we don't need to keep sitting through it. And you go off and have dinner or something. This is the one where I wanted to see it. I loved seeing that happen. I wanted to see it happen in Amsterdam. I wanted to see it happen in Berlin. I wanted to see it in Stockholm. I loved seeing that progress of an audience from snobbery to abandonment. So, I mean, that's, you know, it doesn't... I've been very fortunate in finding material which feeds into completely different sensibility.
Well, an example then of that would be Michael Winterbottom's Geneva, which is another story of somebody grieving, but this is the man whose wife has been killed in a car accident, and he's looking after their 2 daughters, so he takes them to Italy. Now, this is such a naturalistic film that it makes one almost wonder whether there was a set script to start with.
There was. Michael is an extremely disciplined director, and he has a script and a structure, but he has a very unconventional approach. He shot this film on a DV. It wasn't even on an HD. There wasn't a camera that big. There wasn't a light. There wasn't a continuity person. There was no security. There was a crew of 12. There were no extras. The streets were not shut off. Everybody you see who isn't of the principal cast was actually somebody who happened to be walking through the streets of Geneva at the time. He does encourage departure from the script. He doesn't do a take twice. He's fierce about punctuality. When you're on the clock, you're on, and you walk on at 9 o'clock and you start acting, particularly when there's no setup, there's no lighting, whatever, and around 4 o'clock, you're off. And he doesn't want any discussion after that. You can't even reach him. But in that concentrated time when you're on to an extraordinary, there's no peripheral vision during that period.
Well, let's see you here with Catherine Keener, who plays a friend who is very keen to console and also offer advice about how the girls might get over the trauma.
Listen, I'm very, I'm so sorry about today, really. And it must be just incredibly hard for all of you. They're beautiful kids. Did they have counseling?
Yeah, I saw someone after the accident.
You're all very brave.
Yeah, well, we don't have much choice.
No. Yeah.
Listen, I need to go to bed.
I'll go. I should go. I just think that, you know, she feels very, very guilty about Marianne, Joe, and I think that she needs help.
Maybe.
Okay.
What you have there is, and you have scenes of you with the friend. When it comes to A Single Man, I mean, that is a film where you're largely on your own most of the time, which must be very hard.
Lonely, yes. It was. I spent an awful lot of time, because I didn't know that any of the people I was working with very well. I mean, we had 21 shooting days on Single Man. And most of that time was spent pacing around the craft service table, wondering whether if I ate another Smartie, it was going to affect my nude scene the next day. And, you know, I didn't, you know, if you have fellow actors, it takes an awful lot of pressure off, because not only are you bantering with your colleagues, but you're also engaged with someone that's going to be there when you shoot, in front of the camera, doing your job with you. And most of that wasn't happening. So when Julianne Moore showed up, that was just 3 days. And I had the most wonderful 3 days where the joy of having a fellow actor was so great that actually getting on with the job and shooting a scene was an interruption. I mean, I remember deeply resenting it when Tom Ford said action.
How had Tom Ford sold the film to you? Because he was unproven as a director at that stage. He was obviously very well known in the design world, but that's not necessarily going to be an advertisement for making a film.
Don't underestimate my vanity. in being approached. You know, and I opened up an email and found that he'd bothered to get my email address and bypassed all, you know, intermediaries, and wrote a beautifully eloquent account of the thing he wanted to do, and then expressed a feeling that I was probably the only person who could possibly do it. I mean, you can't, you know, I was half, he had me halfway right there. And
he had you at hello, is it?
yes, it has to be you. So hello wasn't, did half the work. And when I met him, I found there was something utterly irresistible about him, because he has an extraordinary, overwhelming physical beauty. And he had just got off a plane and looked like he'd, you know, if I spent 8 hours in makeup, I couldn't achieve it. And he was utterly perfect. And the way he pitched the film to me was perfect as well. It was perfectly constructed, it was eloquent, it was fluent. It wasn't that got me, though. There was something, there was a peculiar vulnerability about him that made me think that, not something he flaunts, but it made me think there was a dimension here that wasn't obvious.
Well, the clip we're about to see is when Charlie, who is George's friend, invites him over. And so this is the point where Julianne Moore turned up on set for 3 days, and it is a relatively light moment for a second.
Charlie, there is nothing wrong with your life. You just like feeling sorry for yourself. It's one of your great pleasures.
And it's not one of yours. You're as pathetic as I am.
Feeling sorry for myself is definitely not one of my great pleasures.
Well, it's not one of mine either. I don't like feeling sorry for myself one bit. I tried to hold on to Richard for so long, even it was obvious to everyone but me that it was over. And now Clay has grown up. I mean, what am I doing here, Joe? Tell me, what?
You have plenty of friends. You'll be fine.
Yes, I have friends, but none of them need me. And yes, I have you. And if you weren't such a goddamn puss, we could have all been happy.
So let's talk about the King's Speech, which is about George VI, from before he was George VI, and then when he has to take over on the throne when his brother abdicates. Now, this whole question of it, the film makes you, when you're watching it, you start to feel physically really quite constrained yourself. I mean, it has a very... So what kind of preparation could you do for that?
Gosh, I do find this one a difficult one to answer, because I don't quite know.
But there must have been advice about the sort of physiological effects.
Not much, actually. No, it's not as if we were sitting around the people who had expertise on stammering. I mean, anybody who is an expert on stammering will be an expert on dealing with it, on overcoming it. Not that you necessarily cure it, but on battling it, not on how to stammer. We had all sorts of things we had to negotiate. You have a script with a pace and a structure. You have to finesse the humor, and you have to address the dramatic flashpoints in the script. And in the middle of all this, you have something which is central to your craft, which is your speech. Now, if that is interfered with by representing an impediment, the chances are you'll interfere with all the rest of it. That you can compromise the humor, that you can compromise the pace, you can compromise the drama. If there's banter, if there's repartee, if there's human expression, whatever you do, you are going to have to process it through that. And that's unusual.
And in the heart of the film, sort of crucible of the film, are the encounters that he has with the speech therapist played by Geoffrey Rush. I mean, was there a sense when you saw the script start with that these scenes were going to be so much the heart of it, so powerful?
Oh, yes. I mean, we knew they were the heart of it. I can't remember how long the shoot was, but Geoffrey had to be dispensed back to Australia for some play after 5 or 6 weeks with us, and we lost him. And then, in some ways, it galvanized us to look for the substance in what lay in the rest of the film. But there's no getting away from the fact that the real MacGuffin, if you like, is what happens between these two men.
And on that cue, we'll now see you and Geoffrey Rush.
Please. Call me Lionel.
I prefer Doctor.
I prefer Lionel. What'll I call you?
Your Royal Highness. Then Sir, after that.
It's a little bit formal for here. I prefer names.
Prince Albert, Frederick, Arthur, George.
How about Bertie?
Only my family uses that.
Perfect. In here, it's better if we're equals.
If we were equals, I wouldn't be here. I'd be home with my wife, and no one would give a damn.
Well, please don't do that.
I'm sorry.
I believe sucking smoke into your lungs will kill you.
My physicians say it relaxes the throat.
They're idiots.
They've all been knighted.
Makes it official, then.
What would you say is the most enjoyable aspect for you when it comes to acting and performing?
I suppose the collaborative nature of it, really. You know, I enjoy I enjoy collaborating so much that it actually affects my judgment when it comes to taking a job. You know, I sometimes just think that's such a great group of people to work with. I don't really care about any other aspects of this. I just want to get with them. So I'd say it's that, really. That's what keeps tempting me back to do it.
In acting, how much do you become involved in forming a story and discussing where something might go, how it might change relative to your reaction to material?
My first choice is to find a text that I can completely submit to. I don't like to mess with it. It's not my first instinct. There are some actors for whom that is true. They want to start to take it apart and customize it to themselves. That's not mine. I would much rather have Shakespeare, something you can't question. But I do meddle.
And if you so enjoy the collaborative element of what you do, are there collaborations, approaches that you've not yet had for kinds of films that nobody's ever sent to you, that you would really rather wish that somebody would?
I suppose so. I mean, I can't really sort of make a wish list, but I suppose there are. I know that there have been times when I've read a script and thought, actually, nobody knows how good I'd be at that character, and yet they're still offering me this character. There were the kinds of things I remember doing at drama school and remember imagining and fantasizing about doing that never came my way.
Oh, go on, give us a clue.
Not really, no, I'm not going to.
Not that collaborative, then.
No, I'm not cooperative, I didn't say. No, I suppose we are very locked into notions of class in this country, and I think I've been held to that far more than I think is... It's inconsistent with my idea of myself and what I feel that I could offer. I mean, as I said, I did not grow up speaking like this, and yet I've made a career out of it. That's quite bizarre to me. No one's ever asked me to speak in the accent that I spent my entire childhood speaking.
Well, we're looking forward to that Hampshire role, Colin Firth.
I'm not sure anyone was very enticed by it, but anyway.
But in the meantime, thank you very much indeed for your life in fiction.
Thank you.